Kent Island High School families, welcome to the Rising Senior College Application Process Overview video. In this video, I'll be walking you through key elements of the college application process and what you can be doing this summer to be prepared to apply to four-year colleges in the fall of your senior year. We're going to get started by using Naviance. The easiest way to log into Naviance is via the Kent Island High School homepage. To log in, your students should use their 5-digit computer ID number and their school-assigned password. Once logged in, your student's page should look like this. This is an updated version of Naviance, so your student might not be as familiar with this setup as they have been with the old one. All of the tools are the same, what it does is the same, but the interface looks a little bit different. So students, as you're following along, those tabs that used to be across the top of your Naviance screen are now over here on the right side. All of the same materials are under these tabs. The home page now has a little bit more information than the old home page. So students, don't panic. The tools and everything that you put into Naviance over the last 3 years is still here. It's just housed a little bit differently. So the first thing to look at is our welcome message. So we update this regularly. It's grade level specific. So we have a message on here to current juniors right now. But we change this throughout the year. So once they get into their senior year, especially in December, January, February, when scholarships or community scholarships are really available and we have a lot going on in terms of that, we'll have lots of tips and tricks on here about filling out scholarships, which ones are definitely ones you should be doing, how to get to them, where the applications are housed, all of that. So this is our welcome message. It's updated regularly. Also on the home page down near the bottom, you'll see links from your school. So we post links to Naviance that we think are really helpful. So if you click view all from my school, you'll see our list of links to different websites that we think can help you and your student with this college application process. So we're not going to go through all of them, but a couple of them I want to point out. Let's look at AP credit policies. So if you click on that, that's going to take you to a College Board website, the company that runs SAT, AP testing, PSAT, all of that. On here, this is where you could see if your student will receive college credit for an AP class they've taken. So let's show you an example. If I enter University of Maryland, and I pick College Park, it's going to take me to a chart that tells me if I took AP Art History, I scored a 3 on the exam, that at University of Maryland, I would get 3 credits in their Art History Class 150. And it shows you that for all of the AP tests that College Board and AP offers. This chart is specific to Maryland, but every school is under that search bar where I put in University of Maryland. You can put in any school in the whole country and see what would they give your student based on their AP scores. So it's really helpful to see what they're going to transfer into college with or what they're going to test out of. If they've taken AP Calculus, they're not going to take Math 140 at Maryland as long as they scored a 4 or better on the AP exam. So it helps to give you an idea of what their classes are going to look like based on the AP credits that they'll already receive when they transfer in. Back on the Naviance page, you'll see another link that's called MDDE credits. That stands for Maryland Dual Enrollment Credits. So if you click on that, this is going to take you to a state of Maryland specific website. If you click course equivalencies, under this tab, you'll be able to look and see that if your student took a class at Chesapeake College through dual enrollment and they want to transfer to any school in the state of Maryland, what would they get credit for? So I have it set to tell me that if I took classes at Chesapeake College and I'm going to Salisbury University, what would I get credit for? So I'm going to put in English 101. That's the composition class that many of our students take through Chesapeake. It's English 101. So I'm going to hit go. And now it's going to show me that if I take English 101, which is composition, at Chesapeake College, it's a 3-credit course. It counts in the English area as their composition class. Now it also tells me that if I transfer to Salisbury University with English 101 and 3 credits of that, I'm going to get English 103 composition and research, it's transferable, it's 3 credits, and it's counting in the English area. So this tells you that that's a great course to take at Chesapeake if you're planning on going to Salisbury. It transfers, it counts for the exact same thing, and it's going to get you out of English 101 at Salisbury University. And I can tell you, English 101 at Chesapeake College is a much smaller class size, and it's much less expensive than it's going to be at Salisbury University. So if you plan on going to an in-state school, dual enrollment is a great option, and we really encourage you to take a look at this website to make sure what you're taking in dual enrollment will transfer to the school you want to attend in the state. You can take dual enrollment even if you are not planning on staying within the state of Maryland. You just need to check with the college you're planning on going to find out what their transfer policy is. What do they accept? What would you get credit for? And they'll give you that based on their school's policy. So this website only works if you're staying within the state, but you can call any school and tell them what class you're taking at a community college and ask what it would transfer for at their school. Typically they'll ask for your transcript from the college that you're attending, the community college you're attending and taking the class at. They might ask for a course description, but they can tell you what it would transfer for. Back on the Naviance page, more useful links. So if your student's planning on going to play Division I or Division II sports, they have to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. So we have that link on here. You create an account. You put in all sorts of information about yourself. Have you ever been paid to play sports? What are your grades? What classes have you taken? That kind of stuff. And then they check the status of your eligibility to receive athletic money. We as Kent Island High School have to upload the students' transcripts to this account as well. So it's a little bit of a process, but if you plan on playing Division I or II sports in college, you have to create an Eligibility Center account. You get a number at the end, and that's the eligibility number, your NCAA number, that colleges will need to see as you're being recruited. Other helpful ones, we have SAT dates on here, ACT registration, ACT dates, so those are all right here. We have the Common App and the Coalition app. So those are 2 applications that you can use. You fill out that application and it can get sent to many different schools. So for example, if you use the Common App and you apply to Dickinson College, and then you decide, oh, I really also want to apply to Gettysburg, and I really want to apply to Salisbury, and I'm interested in Frostburg, then via the Common App, you could go ahead and apply to all of those schools with one application. Now, you pay the application fee for each school that you apply to, but you don't have to go back in and do a whole nother application to apply to those schools. Not every college uses the Common App, though I believe it's over 700 at this point. 700 schools do use the Common App. So it's a really nice tool if you have schools that are using it. The Coalition is exactly the same, except the Coalition app is a much smaller group of schools, and I would say they claim to be much more prestigious schools. So there's some very hard to get into and prestigious state schools that are on the Common App, such as University of Maryland College Park, University of Florida in Gainesville. Some of the Ivy League schools are on the Coalition app. So the Coalition app is the exact same setup as the Common App, one application, and you send it to multiple schools. Still pay the application fee for each school, but you didn't have to fill out individual applications. It's important to note that if you are planning on applying to University of Maryland College Park, the application you have to use is the Coalition app. They do not have their own university-specific application anymore. So if you're applying to University of Maryland College Park, it would be worthwhile to go ahead and create a Coalition app and create your account and start working on it, because you're going to have to use that platform in order to apply to UMD College Park. Many other schools will use the Coalition app and their own application, or the Common App and their own application, but there are specific schools that only use one or the other, so you have to use the application that they're accepting. Other important and helpful links on this website, you can see College Raptor. This is a pretty popular website that many high school students use in order to do some college research. So it has some of the same tools as Naviance, but housed in a different way. So you can do college searches on here. Their Paying for College tab is really, really helpful. You can put in some really specific information about your family income, and get some pretty accurate predictions on what your financial aid would look like and what your cost of attendance would be for colleges. So I really encourage you to get on here and look at the Paying for Colleges tab if that's something that you have a lot of questions about, which I know is something that parents and students are thinking of when trying to pick schools and decide where to apply. So that's our helpful links spot. Again, that was under the Naviance student homepage, and then down at the bottom you'll see from my school and links and pages, and then you'll click view all from my school. So let's go ahead and get started with something else that should be pretty familiar for students. If you click the About Me tab, we're going to go ahead and click Home and update your resume. So right here under Betty Buccaneer, which is who I'm logged in as, class of 2019, I'll click Resume. Betty Buccaneer's resume is in here. So all of our students have been working on their resume since 9th grade. Ms. Steinbrook introduces Naviance to our 9th graders and asks them to begin the process of creating a resume via Naviance. Every year we go into classes. In 10th grade we go into government classes. In 11th grade we go into English classes. And in those class lessons we ask students to go ahead and update their resume. So hopefully your resume is pretty well up to date, or your student's resume is pretty well up to date. If not, you can always add some new things. You can edit what's there. But we ask that this resume really is ready to roll and totally up to date by the time you start your senior year. We use this as school counselors to help write your letters of recommendation. I might know a student very well and have a good relationship with that student, but I might not know the specifics of what they do when they go volunteer at ARF. I might know that they do that and that's something that's important to them, but I don't know exactly what their responsibilities are when they're there. So it's important that they tell me that. Those types of things need to be in their resume. So please don't shy away from adding extra details. Please give us plenty of information about what your responsibilities are, whether it's at a job or it's at a volunteer activity, an extracurricular. If you've received awards, Student of the Month, make sure all of that's in here. This is really important information for us as we write your letters of recommendation. Your teachers also will have access to this, so they can look at your resume as they're writing your letters of recommendation. So it's really important that this is up to date. The other cool thing is that you can go ahead and print and export your resume. So there's all sorts of different, I've done it a few times for Betty Buccaneer, but you can go in and edit one that you've already exported, or you can export a new one. So if you're going to apply to a summer job, if you're doing a scholarship, anything like that that needs your resume, you can take it right out of Naviance. So this isn't just for us as school counselors or teachers, but it's also for you to use. So you can download it as a Word doc and go ahead and make edits if the format's not quite how you want it. That's all available to you. So we really encourage you to export your resume and use it. Don't just keep it sitting in Naviance and just giving it to us. So that's the About Me tab. There's some other things on here that are interesting. So we actually do our AP exam registration through Naviance. You can see that. You can see that your student should hopefully has completed some of these assessments. We do learning style inventory, so what type of learner is your student. We do 180 career interest profile, so they answer 180 questions about different things that they might be interested in. Would you like working with your hands? Do you like counting money? So it asks them specific things and how much they would enjoy that task. And then from there, it gives them lists of possible careers. So that's a pretty cool tool that your students would have done in 10th grade. But in here, there's other assessments that we don't necessarily give the kids, but are great. We just don't have the time to give them all of them and to let them play around with everything. But this is certainly free game. So we encourage the students and the families to be in here and be using this portal to help figure out what their plans are after high school. So game plan, students have done this. So it tells us that your student plans to go on to get a 4-year degree, what their interests are in terms of a career or a major. It tells us the type of schools they're looking at. Do they want to stay in state? Near the bottom, it tells us people they've thought about to write letters of recommendation for them. So Betty Buccaneer has thought of Miss Kepley, Miss Brainer, and Miss Mammis and Mr. Brainer as people that she might ask to write letters of recommendation. That's nothing official, but we've been asking them to think about these things throughout the year. What teachers do they have good relationships with that they would feel comfortable asking them to write them a letter of recommendation for their college applications? So that's all under game plan under the About Me tab. The other most important thing under the About Me tab, besides the resume being updated, is this parent brag sheet. So we give parents an opportunity to tell your student's school counselor about your child. We are not naive. We know that you know things about your student that we don't, and there's things that you know your student has accomplished or achieved that they won't necessarily tell us. So we wouldn't have that information. This is your opportunity to tell us about your child and things that you would want us to know. So I believe it's 6 questions. And these 6 questions are pretty general. Don't feel like you have to answer all of them. Tell us what you want us to know, things that might be helpful as we write write letters of recommendation as we talk to colleges about your child. What would you like us to be able to speak to about them? So this is your opportunity to do this. You have to do it through your student's account. Parents don't have Naviance accounts in Queen Anne's County, so you have to do it through your child's account. But you can go ahead and do it, and then you'll submit it, and we will have access to it. So it's pretty cool. We look at these as we're writing letters of recommendation for students. School counselors have to write a letter of recommendation for every student that's going off to a four-year college. So if you're planning to apply to four-year schools, your school counselor will have to write you a letter of recommendation. It's called a written evaluation. So we talk about your transcript, what's on it, what's impressive about it, a little bit about the setup of Kent Island High School, because every high school is different. Not every school allows you to take the number of AP credits that we do, or the dual enrollment. So we have to speak to that, and then we speak about your child and what they've achieved in 4 years, and what our perception is of how successful they could be at the next level. So this parent brag sheet is really helpful in us being able to write that letter, as well as their resume. And then we meet with every student. So in the fall of their senior year, every senior will meet with their school counselor on an individual meeting. It's about 15 or 20 minutes. It happens within the school day, so we work with our teachers on a schedule for that. And in that meeting, we go through some updates about the student. What are things that we wouldn't know? What are things you think are really important? We talk about their plans after high school. What do they need help with in the college application process? Where are they at so far? We review SAT scores, GPA. We look at what they need to pass in order to graduate high school. So we go over that with them. We give them a copy of their transcript so they know what's going to be sent to colleges. So it's a really helpful meeting for us and for students. So we do a lot of different things to make sure that we know our students well and that we can write strong letters of recommendation for them that will be helpful in the college application process. So let's go back to the home page. We've gone over the resume, we've gone over the parent brag sheet, we looked at the helpful links at the very beginning. Let's get more into kind of the college process and things that you should really be doing over the summer to be prepared to start applying. So on the homepage, you'll see colleges I'm thinking about. This is the place where your student should be listing schools that they're thinking they're going to apply to. So this list is going to change. We introduced this to students when they were in 10th grade, so there could be schools on here that you're totally shocked by or the student doesn't even remember adding. But this has been a list that we've introduced to them before. It's possible your student doesn't have any schools on here, that they've done the college research in our class lessons but just haven't added colleges to this list. But this is where we really need them to start adding the schools they're planning on applying to. This page is also really helpful for you and for students when you're trying to kind of outline a calendar or kind of a plan of attack, I would say, for college applications. The reason is that it tells you some useful information about each school. So if we take Appalachian State, for example, this first column tells us that Appalachian State is a common application school. So they accept and use the Common App. If you look underneath it, you'll see that Arcadia University also accepts the Common App. So if this is your student's account and you see multiple Common App schools, then your student should go ahead and create a Common App account. It's worthwhile for them to use that platform because they can fill it out once and send it to 2 of the schools they're interested in. The next thing is it tells you application deadlines. So under Appalachian State, you can click here and you can see that they have 2 different types of deadlines. So there are multiple types of deadlines in the college application process. Some of them mean different things. Some of them just have different names but really don't mean anything different. So I'll attach to this video a short document that explains the different types of college application deadlines. It'll explain the difference between early action and early decision, regular decision, priority decision, rolling admissions. I'm sure your head's spinning, but there are many different types of deadlines in the college application process, and it's important that you know the difference. Some of them are binding, meaning if your student gets in and they applied during that deadline, then they have to attend that school. So early decision agreements are binding. So don't apply early decision if your student doesn't know 100% that they're going to that school no matter what. So I'll attach a document again that outlines the different types of decisions and application deadlines so that you're clear on what they mean and if there is some sort of binding agreement that you're making by applying to that deadline. But you can see in here that it gives that information for all of the schools that are listed, and it's pretty helpful. I want to point out a couple of other things on here. If you click more, Over here, you can request information from the school. You can send an email right from Naviance. You can visit the school's website. The other cool thing is you can look at scattergrams. So let me find a school that we've had a decent amount of kids apply to. Let's do Salisbury. So if I go to Salisbury and I click scattergrams, this is going to show me a chart that is specific to Kent Island High School. So your students are familiar with this, but the green checks show you students from Kent Island High School that have been accepted to Salisbury. So if your student on the GPA scale and the SAT scale would fall within these green checks, then you know that they have a pretty good chance of getting accepted to Salisbury. So if they have, this is showing, you know, a 3.5 and over a 1200 SAT, it's a pretty safe bet for them that they would get in. If you come down here and you see these red X's, these are students that were not accepted to Salisbury. Okay, so these are students that were denied acceptance to Salisbury. Now keep in mind, all of these scattergrams are self-report. So at the end of student senior year, we ask them to come in and update their Naviance account to tell us where they were accepted, where they were denied, waitlisted, deferred, basically what their application decision was for every school they applied to. So it is student report. So you'll see some that look off, and it's possible that they are. But this is a really neat way to see how your student compares to other Kent Island High School students that have applied to these colleges and universities within the last 6 years. We've been using Naviance and using this feature. So within the last 6 years, this data is accurate and up to date. So if we go back to the colleges page and we're doing the colleges I'm thinking about, this is that chart we were back to. So very, very helpful. It's really important that your student has this list up to date and that it has all the information and the schools that they're planning on applying to. In part 2 of this Naviance overview and session that we do with rising seniors, we're actually going to show you how to move this to where it says move to application list. There's actually a different list that your student uses in order to actually apply to these schools and tell their school counselor that, hey, I've applied. But we're going to start with colleges I'm thinking about. So please make sure that your student's list of colleges they're thinking about and that they're planning on applying to is up to date by the start of their senior year. So a big thing with trying to pick schools and deciding where to apply and where not to apply is visiting colleges. So college visits are really the best way to know and for students to know if they can see themselves there for the next 4 years. Summer is a great time to do college visits. We really, really encourage students to take that time to go walk around college campuses. If you're going on a family trip or a family vacation and there's some schools along the way, stop and have your students see them. They don't know the opportunities that are out there and the schools that are out there until they're exposed to them. So it's super important that our students are able to be on college campuses and experience that in order to make good decisions about where to apply to colleges. College applications are not cheap. They're anywhere from $30 to $75. So if you're spending, $50 on a college application to a school that your student has never visited, they could walk on that campus after they've applied and within 5 minutes say to you, this school is not for me. Well, then we've wasted $50. So it's important that your student and you visit schools before they apply. It's the best way to know if they really can see themselves there and if it's a school worth spending their time applying to and spending their money on. So that's a huge kind of homework assignment for you and your students over the summer. If you haven't visited the schools your students thinking about, it's important that they do that. There's certainly some time in the fall to visit colleges. We'll take a couple of college field trips from Kent Island High School in the fall. We do them every year. This year we visited Towson, we visited Morgan State, we go to Chesapeake and Anne Arundel. So we take students on college visits and field trips, and we'll do some more this coming year. But it's important that your students are doing them on their own as well when it's possible. So that's a big thing to make sure is on kind of your summer list of things to do. The other thing that you want to make sure is that when you start the college application process in the fall, we'll continue to walk you through that your student has SAT scores or ACT scores that they're happy with. So the SATs and the ACTs are part of the college application process. So going into your senior year with scores you're proud of, scores that are good, and scores that align with the schools you're interested in is necessary. So if you go to the College Board website, so it's just collegeboard.org, it's going to bring you to this page. This is College Board's homepage. If your students taken the SATs already, they would have an account so they could go ahead and sign in. But I'm just going to show you upcoming SAT dates. So if I click SAT, And then over here on the right side, you'll see next SAT subject test. So August 25th is the next SAT. So if I scroll down, I'll see it right here. So if your student hasn't taken the SATs, or you think they need to take it again in order to improve their score, then August 25th would be a great time to take it. October 6th is definitely an option, though that's getting closer and closer to college applications. So there is not a single college application deadline that is before October 15th. There is an association of college admissions counselors, and it's one of their bylaws that colleges cannot have applications due before October 15th. So that's the earliest college deadline. I would say the much more common college deadline, so the majority of schools, their college application deadlines are November 1st, November 15th, December 1st, and then there's some that roll into January and February. But I would say really by November, December, your students should be getting those college applications submitted and be finishing up that process. So the longer you wait to take SATs and ACTs, the closer it's going to get to you need your scores sent to the colleges as part of your application. So we really want to try not to wait until these November, December tests, and you'll really be pushing deadlines at that point. So if you need to take the SATs still, we encourage the August and October test dates. Technically, your student can take the SAT as many times as they want, though after a student takes it more than 3 times, their score is not what they called super scored. So they don't get the best score from each subject area. They would just get their best overall score from one sitting. So really, students should not take the SAT or the ACT more than 3 times. That 3rd time is really the last time your student should be taking it. So ACT is obviously an option. We live on the East Coast, so everybody talks about the SAT, though colleges and universities don't have a preference. So they do not care whether your student submits an SAT score or an ACT score. There's differences in the 2 tests. You can look those up. ACT has a science section, the SAT doesn't, and there's some other differences that you can research. But we really encourage students to find the test that works for them and stick with that test. There's no reason to continue taking both the SAT and the ACT. Colleges accept both tests equally. They don't have a preference. So they just need either a strong SAT or a strong ACT score. But this is the ACT website, so all of the same information, very similar to SAT, is right here. Prep materials, study options, most of it's free. So they really do a lot to offer tools to students to improve their ACT score. Same thing with the SAT. So back on the College Board website, Khan Academy is what they do. So if you do practice, it's going to take you to Khan Academy and being able to practice for the SAT. So we really encourage students to do that if they're going to take the test again. So back to Naviance, we're back to the colleges I'm applying to page, and we've talked about a few of the things that really need to happen this summer to be ready. I have 2 more things I think are important that will help you be kind of ahead of the ball game going into the fall of your senior year, because it is a stressful time. There's a lot happening. Senior year is exciting, but there's a lot of moving parts. You're applying to college, you're doing your financial aid application, the FAFSA, you're doing scholarship applications, and you're still in for classes, and you're, excuse me, you're playing sports, you're in the plays and the musicals, you're in marching band, you're in after-school clubs and activities. So all of those things are still happening, but now we're adding a lot of stress and a lot of moving parts on top of that when it comes to the college application process. So it's important that you spend part of the summer preparing and getting as much done as you can ahead of time. So the college essay. Oh, this is a big one. College essays are a part of almost every college application. The hard part is that there isn't one standardized essay. So every college can come up with their own college essay and ask you to complete it as part of their application. This is also, though, where the Common App and the Coalition App really come into play, because the Common App and the Coalition App have college essays and have them already written and published, and you can start answering them now and send them to any school that accepts the Common App or the Coalition App. So if you go in and Google 2018-19 college application Common App essay questions, they will come up. So let's try it. So here we go, 2018 Common Application essay prompts. So Common App has already published their essays for next year. So that means that if on your colleges I'm thinking about list, you see multiple schools that are Common App schools and you know you're going to use the Common App, you can go ahead and pick one of these essays and start answering it and start working on your college essay. The summer is a great time to start brainstorming your college essay. If you wait until the fall to try and whip out a college essay, you are really going to be stressed. So we highly encourage that you start the college essay process now. We started it with all juniors in their English classes, so they have been walked through the college essay, given resources that are really helpful in writing a college essay. But now's the time to find out what are the prompts for this coming fall. So the Common App ones are right here. There are 7 prompts you can choose from. They all touch on different things. But these essay prompts are really a great place to start. You can also research individual schools' essay prompts. So most colleges have already put out their essay prompt for the coming fall and the coming application. So if you Googled Towson University's Common App or college application essay prompt 2018-2019, their essay prompt will come up. They change it usually year to year. This current class had to write about if they were eating dinner with 3 people, who would they choose and why, and what would the conversation look like, and what would that dinner party basically be like with the 3 people they chose to have dinner with. So some schools, like Towson, come up with very creative essays that you could really only use for their application. It's not always true that you can write one college essay and use it for every college you plan to apply to. Typically, our students, on average, write 2 to 3 college essays in the college application process. So it's important that you start that now. If your student is slammed with writing 3 college essays on top of 4 courses here at Kent Island High School, on top of activities after school, that's asking a lot of them. So the summer is definitely the time to start thinking about college essays. So the school counseling department and team is really here to help you with your college essay. We love reading them. It tells us a lot about our students. It's something that we really enjoy. So please feel free, as you're working on your college essay this summer, to reach out to your school counselor and ask them to read your essay. We are more than happy to do that. And really, we see a lot of college essays. So it's easy for us to say, hey, I've already read 4 or 5 essays that talk about this exact same topic and this exact same subject in a similar way. So I'm not sure your application and your essay is going to stand out when we know a lot of people are writing about this. So we have that insight and are able to speak to that. We also are in communication with college admissions advisors and reps, so the people reading college essays and college applications, and we have a lot of tips and tricks that they've shared with us in terms of what makes a good college essay. So please feel free to use your school counselor as you write your college essays this summer. Your English teachers are also great resources. They really can find the grammatical errors. They can make sure that your essay is well written. So please use your English teachers as well. They're more than happy to read college essays. Our senior English teachers are Dr. Wolf and Miss Duplashane, and I can tell you they have read hundreds of college essays in their time at Kent Island High School. So they are very well versed in college essays and being able to tell you what stands out and what works and grammatically if something is correct or not. So please use your resources that are here at Kent Island High School in terms of college essays. There's also a couple online resources that I've shared with students before, but I'll share with you now. So the first one is the College Essay Guy. So he has an awesome website. He's based out of California, but it's the College Essay Guy. So if you Google it, that's what I just did. His website will come right up. Your students have done brainstorming activities off of this website with us in our classroom lessons as juniors, but this is a great website to look at in terms of college essays. There's stuff on here you have to pay for, but I don't pay for anything. All the stuff that I use and I recommend to students is free. So he has a lot of great free resources in terms of college essay tips and things to be looking at. So right here you can see free stuff. So it is an awesome resource for your students when they're trying to figure out their college essay. If they say, I have no idea what to write about, he has all sorts of brainstorming activities to get them thinking. What are some ideas? What could I do? And it talks about the different types of essays. So some schools ask you to tell them, why us? Why do you want to come to Clemson? What is it about Clemson that makes us stand out in your list of colleges that you want to attend? So that's a hard essay question to answer. So he walks you through. How do you answer the why us essay? So this is a really great resource for students and families in writing the college essay. So I encourage you to use this website. It's the College Essay Guy. Again, most of it's free, and your students are familiar with this. The last thing that we're going to go ahead and open up and have you guys start doing is requesting letters of recommendation. So students have to request their letters of recommendation from their teachers. We encourage all students to ask for 3 letters of recommendation from 3 different teachers. Many times we get asked the question, well, what about the people that I volunteer for outside of Kent Island High School? Or what about my travel soccer coach? Or what about my piano teacher that's known me since I was 10? So certainly those people have valuable insights that would write good letters of recommendation for you. Though, in most cases, colleges are asking about your performance in a classroom. So what do you do in an academic setting? And the best people to speak to that are the teachers here at Kent Island High School. So most schools are pretty specific and say that we need 2 letters of recommendation from 2 teachers. Other schools will say we need 2 letters of recommendation. One has to be from a teacher and one could be from a community member, a coach, a church leader. So sometimes they give you that freedom, but a lot of times schools are really looking for teacher letters of recommendation. So we encourage you to ask for 3. The reason is that there are very few schools that want more than 3 letters of recommendation from teachers. So if you ask for 3 and have 3, then you're safe. You're not going to be scrambling to find letters of recommendation. If you only get 1 letter of recommendation, it's possible that you're going to run into a school that says they need 2, and then you're scrambling to get another letter of recommendation written. So we encourage you to get 3. Honestly, at the end of the day, if you have 2 in your Naviance account and 2 strong letters from teachers, you're probably okay. But we start off with try and get 3. Find 3 teachers that you feel like could speak to your academic ability, who you are in a classroom, your potential as a student. So think of 3 teachers that could do that for you. And then I'll walk you through how to actually make the request for them to write you a letter of recommendation, because it is a process in order for us at Kent Island High School to stay organized with who has requested a letter. So if you go back to the colleges tab and you go to home, we should see down here in applying to college letters of recommendation. So we're going to click on that. So it's going to take you to this page. So you can see that Betty Buccaneer has done this a time or 2. So Betty Buccaneer has requested letters of recommendation. You can see that I've canceled them, or some of them are still submitted, some of them are in, but yours would be blank. So you would not have anything on this screen yet. So you would go to add request. You would pick the teacher. So a question that comes up a lot, well, how do I know who to ask? Who writes good letters? Who do you think would know me best? I really am not sure. Or maybe I have 1 teacher I know of, but I'm struggling to think of 2 more. So a couple of things to think about when trying to decide who to ask for letters of recommendation are this. 1, it should be a teacher that's had you recently. So going back and asking a 9th grade teacher, though you may have really liked them and had a great relationship with them and you got a great grade in their class at the end of the day, that was years ago at this point. That teacher has seen hundreds of students walk in their classroom since they had you as a 9th grader. So that's difficult for a teacher to write a strong letter of recommendation for a student that they had many years ago and really haven't kept up with. Now, it's a different situation if you had, for example, Miss Steinheis for U.S. history in 9th grade, and now you're heavily involved in Interact, and so you see her on a regular basis, and over the last 3 years have really interacted with Miss Steinheis consistently, then that's a different story. Miss Steinheis would be an awesome person to ask for a letter of recommendation then, because she knew you as a student in her classroom as a 9th grader, she's seen you grow over the last 3 years, and she can speak to who you are outside of a classroom. So she knows what type of leader you are, what type of person you are outside of the academic setting. So that's just kind of an added bonus to a teacher letter of recommendation, if they can speak to who you are outside of the classroom as well as in a classroom. So coaches are great people to think about in that regard. So is there somebody that you've had as a teacher and you've also had as a coach? They're a great person to ask. Usually you need some core subject teachers. So what does that mean? That means you need an English, math, science, or social studies teacher. So somebody that taught you in a true, rigorous academic class. You would want to ask them to write you a letter of recommendation. They can speak to your math ability or your science, English, social studies. If you're planning on applying to specific programs, so let's say that you're planning on applying to University of Maryland Engineering School, then you really should be asking Mr. DeShong for a letter of recommendation, because he knows you as a student in the engineering program. You also would think about asking your high-level math and science teachers. So if you've had Miss Jane for an AP math class, if you've had Miss Carmine for physics, those are teachers you'd want to ask, because they can speak to your ability in that subject area, in engineering. So you have to be thoughtful about who you pick for letters of recommendation. If you're not sure and you're totally stumped, feel free to reach out to your school counselors. We're happy to help you try to figure out who could write you a good letter of recommendation. Also have conversations with your teachers. Say to them, hey, I'm thinking about asking, you, but I want to make sure that you feel comfortable with it, and do you feel like you know me well, or the things you need to see from me in order to really be able to write me a good letter. Our teachers are very used to these conversations. They have them every year. So don't be shy about talking to teachers about what they would need to write you a strong letter if you feel like maybe they don't know you as well as you'd like them to, but you did well in their class, and it was a class you enjoyed. So be thoughtful about who you ask for letters of recommendation. So the way it works is I'll go in here, I'll pick a teacher. So I'm going to pick Miss Brinster. Let's say that Betty Buccaneer had Miss Brinster for English in 9th grade, and then had her for creative writing as a junior, and also plays field hockey. So Miss Brinster would be like the picture perfect person to ask for a letter of recommendation, because she has seen Betty Buccaneer in all sorts of areas. So I want to click all current and future colleges that I add to my list of schools I'm applying to. What this means is that Miss Brinster is going to write you one letter of recommendation that's going to be not addressed to any one school. So for example, Miss Brinster would write, Dear College Admissions Committee. She would not address it to University of Maryland College Park. It's I don't want to say generic letter, but it's one letter that's not addressed to a specific school so that you can send it to all the schools you apply to. You don't get a specific letter of recommendation for every school that you're applying to. You get a letter that then is kind of generally addressed to all the schools you're going to apply to. So we would put Miss Brinster that we want to be able to use this letter for every school we apply to, and then we would type her a quick note. So Miss Brinster, I am wondering if you So wrote a quick note to Miss Brinster, please don't write them a novel. They're not looking for this to be a big long email or message to them. This is just a quick, hey, wondering if you're willing to write me a letter of recommendation. I'll stop by and talk to you about it in person. So that's really all that needs to go in this box. You don't need to attach your resume. You don't need to try and copy and paste all sorts of stuff in here. Just a quick note to the teacher letting them know that you'd like a letter of recommendation from them. And then you would submit the request. So now you can see that Betty Buccaneer has requested a letter of recommendation from Miss Brinster for all of her college applications that she's going to apply to. Now, there is an exception to asking a teacher to write kind of the generic letter that goes to all colleges. That exception is if you are applying to a college that one of our teachers and one of our teachers that you're going to ask for a letter of recommendation has applied to. So an example of that would be, let's see, Mr. Kerr. So Mr. Kerr went to Washington College. He played lacrosse there. He lives in Chestertown now, and he is an assistant lacrosse coach for Washington College currently. So if you had Mr. Kerr and you're planning on applying to Washington College, then it would be nice if Mr. Kerr would write you a letter that says, Dear Washington College Admissions Committee, I'm Tim Kerr, alumni of whatever class and current assistant coach, and here's one of my students that I teach at Can Island High School, and here's what's so awesome about them. So that's the exception to the rule. So if you were going to do that, you'd pick Mr. Kerr and you would say choose specific colleges from the colleges you're applying to list. Washington College would have to be on here. You would click Washington College. I'm going to click Dickinson, but you would click Washington College. You'd write Mr. Kerr the same thing we wrote Miss Brinster, and you would hit Submit Request. What that would do is that would make the request that goes to Mr. Kerr only for Washington College, so that essay or that letter of recommendation could only get sent to Washington. So it specifically aligns it with that school. So that's really the only exception on when you would ask a teacher to write a specific letter to a specific college. Other than that, we ask that our teachers write the letter that can be addressed and is addressed to any college admissions team and committee, and then we can send it to any school that you'd like it sent to. It makes the process much, much, much easier, and really that's what colleges expect. They do not expect self-addressed letters to them. They know the process. They know that students are applying to many schools and teachers are writing a lot of letters. So the second part of asking for a letter of recommendation is actually an in-person visit to that teacher. So attached to the email that this video was linked in will be a paper, and it's the teacher recommendation form. Students must fill that form out and take it to the teacher in person to request the letter of recommendation. So an electronic request through Naviance really isn't enough. Our teachers want to see the students in person. They want to be able to have a face-to-face conversation to you about where are you applying, what are you thinking about doing, what are things you think would be important for me to put in this letter of recommendation. So our teachers need those face-to-face conversations with students, and they take a form with them because it just jogs the teacher's memory about the student, some specifics about that kid and things that would help them write a letter. It also serves as a great reminder for our teachers because it's a tangible piece of paper that they now have in their possession that reminds them to get that letter of recommendation done. So the last thing to note about letters of recommendation is that they're confidential. So students and parents do not have access to letters of recommendation. So they're written by our teachers in confidence that students won't see them. I'll tell you though that school counselors read every letter of recommendation before we actually send it to the college. So we make sure that what's being sent to schools on your child's behalf is helpful to your student and is setting them up to be accepted. So all of them are looked at, and really, if you have concerns about whether a teacher is going to write you a strong letter of recommendation, maybe you were very smart and you got a good grade in their class, but following directions wasn't your strong suit and you were asked to spend some time in the hallway in that class, and that just wouldn't be a teacher you would want to ask. But if you chose to, we always screen the letters of recommendation, so we read them all before we send them to make sure that they're right, that they are good, they're well written, so they're all screened. But you and students don't have access to looking at letters of recommendation. That's just our county policy that we abide by in order to make sure that our teachers are writing good, true, thoughtful letters, and they're not worried that it's going to get read and misinterpreted by a student or family. If you have questions about that, you're certainly welcome to reach out to me. Again, we're here to help in the school counseling office, help with this process. I know that there's a lot of parts to it, and I don't want to scare you, but this is just the beginning. We have many more things to go through in this process, but if you can get through kind of the list of things that I've walked you through today, you'll be in a great spot coming back to school this summer. I feel confident of that, and we really can have a smooth college application process. The last thing that's important to note is that we will have some transition and change occurring in the school counseling department this coming summer. In case you haven't figured out, this is Miss Osborne talking. So I plan to be here this coming fall, but there will be some changes and some transition that we're going to go through. So once our school counseling staff is confirmed for the 2018-19 school year, I'll be sure to share that information with you. In the meantime, please continue to work with your school counselor. Please reach out to me if you have questions. I'm happy to help any student that needs it or family that needs guidance and support. But I'm excited about the transition. I think that we're going to have a strong school counseling staff, and that we're going to be well prepared to help students through this process. It's a fun process. It's one that we enjoy doing with students and families. So please reach out to us for help. We're here to do that for everybody that needs it. So I have nothing else for you now. Again, there's attachments to the email that you received, so please take a look at those. They're helpful. They overview some of the stuff that I've already talked about and give more details and have some of that paperwork that you really need. Other than that, please enjoy your summer, and I look forward to hearing from you and helping you through this process.